Wow, that's some severe problems. I'm not sure what's going
Well,
on.
hello, everybody. Y'all can probably tell I'm in the car. I'm in my truck.
Hey, man,
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. That was strange. I'm not sure. We'll just keep going here. I'm guessing we're still connected. I have no idea what just happened. so,
I know it
um,
played it twice, and yeah, it was kind of nuts.
no, it only played it once for me. So, it stopped midway. So I'm not sure. Anyway, kind of crazy. Um, why don't you
Well,
introduce
hopefully,
the?
I was going to say, hopefully, somebody out there can give us a thumbs up and let us know that they can hear us.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
Terry's saying she can see us now, so that's good.
Okay. Awesome. Great. Great. Well, I don't have any of my controls that I normally have when I'm at my desk. I broke a tooth yesterday and had to come to the dentist. And this, of course, was the only time I could get in, was right before the show. So I pulled over and just going to be here. Do you want? I do know what the. I don't remember what the title is. I know what it's about.
Yeah, no, I've got a lot of stuff to say about this, and everybody, I apologize. I've got a head cold that's just wicked, so we're all struggling around here. Uh, the title is sort of it's a quote. Nobody knows exactly who it's by, but many times the problem isn't the problem. The problem is your approach to the problem. Talking about how to identify problems, problem solving, and specifically like our brains, right? Those that crazy gray matter that betrays us all the time.
Well, and this is why I love this subject is I mean, you and I both are students of the brain and how the brain works and how it shortcuts things and does things to us sometimes that we wish it didn't, but it does it for our own survival, at least if we were alive thousands of years ago. It hasn't quite caught up to the technology of the day, if you will. We talk about AI and technology, and our brain is still running on really old information.
Yeah, and for in terms of survival, it's really pretty optimized. I mean, it's if avoiding calamity and physical injury and death was all that the brain had to do to you know keep us alive and thriving. Like, in other words, it could very well be that our brains are really more designed for the way life was and the way the world was some several thousands of years ago. Um, because that part of our brain that keeps us alive is not the part of the brain that has anything to do with reason and logic and decision making and all of that. It's a much more reflexive part of the brain. It's a much more um, they call it the old brain or the reptilian brain. I mean, they're just depending on who you subscribe to or listen to as far as how they refer to it. But it's the part of the brain that's you know every brain, no matter what species you're looking at, all brains have this part that is reflexive in a way that is designed to preserve the life of the individual, the life of the person with the brain. And so,
Right.
you know, when us crazy human beings create this advanced society that relies on technology and decision making that is forecasting thousands of variables to understand exactly what the right decision is to make in a particular situation, and maybe making a decision about something that isn't even visible right now. We're talking a decision that we need to make right now that could impact us 30 years from now. And our brains aren't set up for that kind of problem solving. We don't think about those things well. We're not well equipped to, there are tricks though. There are things we can do that make us better at that kind of decision making. But the biology is stacked against us, and we have to know and understand how that biology creates the problems that we have.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really interesting. Uh, and going back to, why isn't the problem the problem? Why is it the approach to the problem? So, our brains a lot of times they identify the problem and it's reactionary. We react to the problem instead of sit back and approach the problem.
Yeah, this disconnecting is one of those things that we can do to separate ourselves a little bit more from the emotion of the situation, or I say the emotion, but sometimes we don't even feel it as emotion. It's just the reaction. It's like a physical, visceral, we just get antsy. We're moving around it because there's this thing that's interrupting us, that's disrupting us, that's causing discomfort, and we don't know how to deal with it. So we're reacting. Our brain just kind of kicks in. It's reflexive. It really is. It's the jump scare. It's the, when the thing comes on the screen in the movie theater that scares everybody, and you think, I'm not gonna jump, I'm not gonna, it's coming, it's about to be there in any second. I mean, the music is telling you it's there. The characters on the screen are practically saying, don't go in there and whatever, and you know that it's about to happen, and then it happens, and you still jump, you still react.
Yeah.
You don't have control over that. That's a physical reaction that just happens, and the reason that it's so automatic is because if it required you to think about it first, you'd be long dead before you had a chance to fully reason out whether or not it was a logical decision to jump out of the way. So,
and so that's a really good reason not to be too hard on our brains. It does keep us alive.
No, for sure. I mean, and that's what it's optimized for, is to keep us, to keep us upright and alive, not necessarily maximize our happiness, our wealth, our, any of those things. It's just, it's all about just staying alive, not killing ourselves or not being killed. So,
all right, so let's go to the next deal. I can't do it, so you have to do this. You're gonna have to do all the controls. So this is a great question, and this is one of the things I often think about: is why do our thoughts bring us more of what we're thinking about? And that's one of those things that when we kind of concentrate on the problem or the problems that we're having, what we end up doing is finding more problems. And it's wild how that works, because it's the old, if I go out and I buy a brand new car that I've never seen before with a great color and I think it's fantastic, and I drive it off the lot, and then it's amazing, I see it every time I turn around, there's that car, and I never really saw it before. And it's because we bring things to the forefront of our minds, and once we do that, that's really what our minds think about. It's telling somebody, hey, I don't want you to think about pink elephants. And then all they can do for the rest of the day is they run around and think about pink elephants.
Or they see pink elephants everywhere.
Yeah.
They just, a little toy or a bumper sticker or something in a yard or whatever. It's almost inevitable. Our brains train themselves to look at what we're told is important to look at.
Exactly.
You cannot tell somebody, don't think of a red wagon right now, because the moment you instruct them and mention red wagon, what does your brain do? It thinks about red wagons immediately.
Mm-hmm.
There's no stopping that, right? So the injunction to say no, don't, and then the brain just does it. I mean, it can't. So focusing on
Can't help itself.
problems is part of the challenge that we have. When we see an issue, we do this with employees a lot. All of us as business owners, as managers, when an employee is doing, just going along, everything's smooth. You're not thinking about that employee's performance much at all. You just, they're trusting that they're getting their job done. But then something happens, and suddenly this person is on your radar, and it was a silly mistake. It wasn't any big deal, but it irritated you that they made that mistake, and they should know better. And so now you're paying attention to the performance of this employee, and almost like under a microscope. And every little thing this person does is not satisfying you, not making you happy. You're starting to wonder why you even hired this person to begin with, because you're so focused on this person's performance, and it compounds. It starts to add up. Customers do this, by the way. This is why reviews are so critically important, and responding to reviews are important, because there is a dog pile effect that is well documented. When there's one negative review and then nobody hears anything, and then there's another negative review and maybe a third, now we've got a string, now we've got a pattern that's starting to emerge. And even if those reviews were unjustified or irrational or whatever, undeserved, it doesn't matter, because they're there now. And without responses to those reviews and everything else, it seems to indicate to people that see them 3 in a row, dates close together, that there's now, there's problems brewing at this company, and it's probably not a good time to reach out to them to get them to do my work. And, that's how our brains protect us. We see those problems, and we're alerted to them, and they become bigger, more in focus, more concerning to us than perhaps they really are. But that's the way that our brain brings to our attention those things that might need attention.
Which brings me back to the pink elephant, because I'm see pink elephants until something interrupts me, and then my attention goes to something else. That's the other thing about the brain. It can easily be interrupted and go do something else. So you can refocus it very quickly. It's called reframing, which is really, really a great thing, what you're talking about. And this is why this really applies to marketing. In reviews, the reframing is basically you're reframing the review from the reviewer's point of view to the owner's point of view, or getting to the bottom of it, or answering it in a way that the next person that comes in says, oh, this company really does care about their customer. They care about the client. They care about the being satisfaction and the customer journey, and they care enough to be able to reach out and answer this review. So you're totally reframing things that jars them out of the bad review, and then now we're talking about something else.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So that directly relates to how this particular subject really does matter when it comes to reviews and when it comes to marketing. The other piece that really helps when you're talking about marketing, and I think it's on I do the things that go up here. I don't even know what you call the questions and whatnot. The other thing that I think is real important when we're talking about marketing has to do with what's working and what's not. So here's just a real live example of this. We get calls sometimes that says, hey, such and such and so, this is not working. Okay, tell me why you don't think this is working. Well, I don't think it's working because my phone's not ringing. I'm like, all right, well, so have you tracked it? Do you know that you're not getting anything from it? Well, no, I haven't. I don't track my phone calls. I don't track my messages. I don't track this. I don't track that. Well, if you're not tracking it, you really don't know if it's working or not. Or they'll say, well, yeah, that's not working. And I'll say, well, is there anything that you see in your business that is working? And they go, oh, yeah, well, this works over here. So it's like, all right, then let's do more of that. Let's go out and do more of that since it's working. So those are the kind of things you want to look at as well, to have your brain really attuned to what is working during a given time, because what works in the busy season may not work in the off season so much, and what works in the off season may not work in the busy season. So you got to pay attention to those things and really train your brain to start looking at the things that you can do as opposed to the things that you don't think you can do. Here's another really good example of that. So I talked to somebody about, it's probably been a couple of months or so ago, and in having this conversation, he really didn't have any more money, and I said, okay, so you're talking to me. I can't really help. I wish I could help everybody and not make a living. I just do it out of my good graces, but I can't any more than you can go do what you do for people. And he's like, yeah, I get it. He goes, but what can I do? I said, well, have you ever taken, anybody to breakfast, like a roofer or HVAC or any of those companies that you can create a referral type relationship with? He said, when I first started, I took 5 people to breakfast, but it really didn't work. And I said, so you don't get business from any of those 5? And he goes, oh, no, I get business from one of them. I said, well, what would you have done if you'd have taken 10 or 15 or 20? If you'd have taken 20 and gotten the same result, then you would have 4 people right now funneling business to you so you can make money. And he was like, I never thought of it that way. So we think things don't work because you didn't maybe got the return that you were hoping for, even though you're getting a return. So if you get that's a pretty good return. Take 5 and get 1 referral partner. That's a 20% return. That's not bad. But we think because it wasn't 100% or 80% that activity or whatever that is not worth it. So our brain really focuses on the negative. That's the other thing, because that helps us, it saves us. And we really do have to go out of our way and get our brains to focus on the positive, on what is working, and really force ourselves to look at that. The person that I know that has done the best job of that is Mark Stoner. And I'm not singing his praises because he's, done well and whatever. He just has got a mindset that everything is going to work out. Somehow it's going to work out. And he just thinks that way. But he and I have had conversations. He doesn't naturally think that. He's had to retrain his brain to think that way. It's going to be, unicorns and rainbows. At some point, it's going to be that. And so he's the unicorn and rainbow guy. So I think it's a really good message, especially when, you hear all the negative stuff on the radio and news and all that stuff. Do not bring that negativity into our businesses, and really look at the things and catch ourselves when we do that, to retrain our brains into the positive.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, there's a lot that can be said there. It's, to unpack some of what you were talking about. I mean, I'll go back to people making decisions on what's working and what's not working, and instead of not focusing on what's, or rather focusing more on what's working than what's not working in order to make better progress. And I think that's great. I think part of the problem, though, again, is that we don't always know what's working and what's not working if we're not tracking. And to your point about tracking, it's not only important to track what is working, but to track those things that haven't been successful. Um, one of the I remember reading this article about a really common bias that occurs in problem solving and strategic thinking called survivorship bias. And it tells the story of World War II. There were a bunch of airplanes that the U.S. just couldn't keep in the air. I mean, they were getting shot down left and right. But in order to win the war in this particular theater, these planes had to accomplish their missions, and they had to figure out what they needed to do to get these planes home safe. They were losing pilots, losing planes. So they brought in a group of all sorts of experts and people, from the plane manufacturer, from the flight school pilots, mathematicians, just all sorts of disciplines to come in and look at this problem and figure it out. And the first thing they did was go down to look at all of the planes that have returned and all of the holes, all of the bullet holes that were in these planes. And so they looked and they saw where all the bullet holes were, and they thought, well, the way to improve this is and make our planes more flight worthy when they're getting shot up is to actually put more reinforcement and plating and armor on the parts of the plane where all the bullet holes are. And so they did, and it had no effect at all. And then this mathematician came in and they consulted him, and he said, well, why did you put them where the bullet holes were? Why not put them where the bullet holes aren't? And they're like, well, that didn't make any sense. He said, well, somewhere out in the ocean over the area where we're losing all these planes is a burial ground full of planes that have been shot out of the sky. And I'll bet you if we could get to those planes, we would see that the bullet holes that are in those planes are in the places where these planes that got back safely didn't have bullet holes. In other words, it's the places where the things aren't that needed to be focused on, not the places where things are. And our focus there to look at success, people have had success. And so we think, well, I'm going to be like Mark Stoner. I'm going to do what Mark Stoner did. And we misattribute the success that he's had to all of the things that he's done right. But it could very well be that the lessons that we need to learn are in the stories of not only the things he's done wrong, but that other people who have tried to be like Mark Stoner or grown a successful business, the things that they didn't do. In other words, being a student of failure is just as important as being a student of success, and maybe arguably more important. So anyway, back to the story, mathematician said, just reinforce the areas where there aren't bullet holes in the survivor planes. They did that, and suddenly all their planes started coming back because they reinforced the right parts of the plane. So those are some biases. Those are ways that our brains can trick us into focusing on the wrong thing instead of focusing on the thing that makes the difference, that brings us more success.
And either way, whatever you focus on, you have to track it. Whatever that is, you have to track, whether it's right or wrong. I've got, there's this old, people ask me all the time, should I still be doing Valpak? Should I still be doing Valpak? This is a good example of that. The answer is, I have no idea. Is Valpak working for you? Well, I don't know. If that's the answer, then the first thing you have to do is find out, is it working? That's number one. Does it work? Does it not? And then you can evaluate. Does it not work because Valpak is lousy, or does it not work because you didn't do a really good job presenting your offer on Valpak? Did it not work because, the offer doesn't pop? The offer is not something people are looking for right now. If you put an offer in Valpak and it's a sweeping offer, and it's in May, nobody thinks about sweeping in May, especially unless you give a really really big discount, and they go, oh, for that, yeah, I'll get my stuff swept now. So you have to have disruption. So why did it fail? That's the other thing that we got to look at, because it could not, it may be a number of things that caused it not to work. But the very first thing you have to do in its iteration right now, is it working or not? And then from there, you can start making some assessments on what, you put it in the bullet holes or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
So
well, that's good stuff.
The lessons here are I mean, we could go on and on and on about the way that we approach problems that are ineffective, or that the other problem solving techniques, other ways of engaging our brains to overcome those biases and those things that trip us up. I love this subject, but this was good. I think we hit on a few things that related to marketing that were important.
Oh yeah. So what did we? Let's see. That's it, and we can talk about our podcast, our Spotify. It's on Spotify and Podvine and all the other places where you get your great podcast, called Spark Live. So if you want to download it and listen to it there, that'd be great. Carter, tell us what we got up next. I don't remember. What do we got next week?
Next week, we're talking about what consumers have to say about reviews and whether or not they value them, whether or not they listen to them. So it's going to be a good conversation.
Yeah, this is going to be good. This is the newest consumer report about reviews that's just come out. So that'll be fun.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bye-bye.